Hey guys, welcome back to the Ohm Light. I'm Megan Kieran, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Coraley Letcher. She is the host of the Blood Moon Radio podcast, and she also offers very unique business consulting services. Hey Coraley, thanks for coming
Hi,
on today.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So I would love to just start with a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are today, a bit about your journey, and how your path led you to be where you needed to be.
I moved into working in media and the podcast out of working in construction. And I got there because I was in sort of a space where a lot of stuff had fallen away. I A lot of deaths had happened, job shifts, job loss, just an incredible amount of life stress. And when I was in that space, I really felt called to bring something into the world that felt really meaningful. And that's how I started the podcast.
I love that. Can I hear more about the podcast and what it provides the listeners and what value it brings as far as like the spiritual and energetic aspect of things?
Yeah. Blood Moon Radio is really a project dedicated to providing a platform for voice. My main goal is to sort of allow people to come on and share their story. We talk about all aspects. I know a lot of podcasts sort of focus on one thing. We sort of go through people's perspective on life and what their lived experience is, and frequently that intersects with their spiritual beliefs or lack of belief. I want it to be a space where everybody can share what that looks like for them. It attracts a lot of academic discourse as well. Feminism and the history of witchcraft definitely play a role in the podcast. Just talking about witch trials and things like the trope of the too much woman. We did a two-part episode on that this year, which was really great. Yeah, so I don't know, it's a space to discuss maybe some of the messier things that we don't normally talk about in
Mm.
a really beautiful way, I think, or I hope.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned more of the messier things because that's something that has been coming up a lot recently, especially for people on any sort of journey, but particularly a spiritual journey or healing journey. You come in with the intention that everything is going to just be love and light and beautiful and rainbows, and then it's shocking when it's not. But if we're realistic and we hear other people's perspectives on things and what they went through, we see past this just, this facade of what we're getting a lot of in the culture and society right now, especially online. It's not all butterflies and rainbows. And it's really powerful to hear that from other people so you know you're not alone.
Absolutely. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't acknowledge that not everything is perfect all the time and it's not meant to be, right? Shadow work
Mhm.
is important. And I think it alleviates a lot of shame for people to just not only hear other people's stories, but feel like it's okay to address the parts of me that I'm not proud of or that were hard, that I struggle with. Instead of being ashamed, you can look at it as this is part of my journey and look at what you learned from it, right? We don't learn by doing everything perfectly. We learn by making mistakes. So,
Yeah, no, that's very powerful. And I think just bringing up shame, it just brought me to healing, right? So, shadow work is not only healing for the person that's going through it and doing it, but you're healing the people around you by going through it because your experience kind of brings in more light, right? I see the whole light and shadow thing, especially as we're going through shadow work and looking at the messy stuff and like the things that may not feel good within us. It allows us to hold more space and more light for things that have a higher frequency, a higher vibration, and um, just helps kind of the whole path that we're on as a collective.
yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, and how has kind of opening up this podcast and beginning to collaborate with people changed, your life and your perspective and your path?
I think initially, probably because I was in like a pretty rough spot, mentally and
Mm.
emotionally, it allowed me to come back to myself in certain ways, and it definitely reminded me of the beauty and the healing power in connecting with people. One of the great things about a podcast is that you get to interact with your guests, you get to interact on social media if you have it, with all sorts of different people. And I've always loved hearing people's perspectives, hearing their stories. I think we gain so much when we're able to understand outside perspective. And so I think it's been like a quiet, slow gift of sort of returning to myself. And yeah, I don't know. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey. I think also traditionally I've given my business acumen to, very transactional, traditional business models. And so getting to put that energy into something that's not only my own project, but that's so very centered on things that I'm passionate about has been so lovely.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because I was in the corporate world for over a decade, and I think having that business acumen, it's a good tool to have, right? But then it's like during that time in my life, I felt so unaligned in so many aspects, and that played a huge role because that's what I was doing for the majority of my day
Yeah.
and majority of my life. And when you said returning to self, I think that's like what the essence of everything on this healing journey is, right? We're going back into ourselves and coming back home and really finding the power within. Um, and if we could backtrack just a little bit, I do kind of want to get more into your personal shadow work because
Yep.
you mentioned the rough spot.
Yep.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that rough spot and anything that became the breaking point, which could have been that breakthrough moment for you?
Yeah, as I'm thinking back to like one of my university professors who was like, you can't write about love. Love is it's been done during the it's there's more important things. But honestly, it's a personal belief of mine that we're here to connect and love. And that's all we really have, right? At the end of the day, you're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna have your all of your belongings or the number in your bank account isn't going to matter. The impact you had on people, the relationships you had with them is what's going to matter. And the breaking point for me was actually the loss of a relationship that was shorter. Like I was going through, or still am going through, a divorce that's been going on for quite some time at
Mm.
that point. And that was definitely a stress. But this relationship was it's still hard to describe the way that we connected. And it was the type of relationship where we got each other so well and we were just really good friends. And so losing it, yeah, sent me into a space I've never been in before. And I hope to never have to revisit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think during that phase, you know, going through that, I felt so I don't think drained is even the right word. Just kind of exhausted emotionally and spiritually and broken is the only real word I can come up with for it. But it forced me to sit with some of the ideas that we tend to carry through life. Is my do I, how do I feel about myself at the end of the day? How do I feel about what I'm putting out in the world. If everything were to end tomorrow, if I were to lose all the people important to me, what would I want to have done and to have said and to have spent my time doing? And so it really pushed me out of my comfort level. I think I'm so very type A. I'm a rule follower. Have traditionally been like, this is how you do things. You go and get the job from someone else and you do the things and then your mom and dad are happy and you're,
I can relate so much to that. Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And this was that moment where I was like, is that happiness? Is it? And those things can change too. I lost a job that I was depending on at that time as well. And it really struck me, no matter how much you want to give or how well you think you're doing in our world, and I think this has probably always been true since time immemorial, nothing is permanent, right? So those things can go away. All those things that we're taught to care about can go away. So what would I want to be doing with my time? Um, how would I want my time managed? Do I want to be able to, relax getting my children ready for school in the morning and be able to take them to school? Or do I want to be rushing out the door at the same time and not? And the answers to all of the things that I was examining came down to, you know, choosing the unsafe options that I think largely for the majority of my life I've avoided. And it was a real leap of faith for me.
Well, that is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that because I think that journey itself is very healing for a lot of people. Because I think a lot of us, including myself, have been a very type A person. Some listeners may not have been, but if you're out there and you are, it's like so uncomfortable to really go through this sort of awakening process and realize that you don't have to do things the way that was laid out for you. And you don't have to get a good, a good job, follow this route of education in order to make money, and then you have to go this certain route to build your life. We are creating and paving a new way of living and being, right? And I think that
Mhm.
was what happened with you when you decided to, leave your old world and create this new one, right? With your podcast and how you're pouring that energy back into yourself. And the abundance will follow that. But also just being so vulnerable. Thank you about, the loss of a relationship and like the impact that another person can have in you, but it's just a reflection
Yeah.
back inwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't quite metabolized what the purpose of something that felt so, I don't know, so different than anything else I'd ever experienced coming in and then abruptly being taken away was, but I'm hoping eventually I'll get there. I don't know. Maybe it was just the catalyst to start this whole process. I was going to say, while you were talking, I was struck. I was like, one of the crazy things about the podcast, like Crazy Wonderful, is during that process, meeting other people who are kind of on the same journey. How you said we're building a different way to do things. I truly believe that. I know that that can sound hokey to some people, but I
Mm-hmm.
honestly have met so many wonderful, inspiring, strong people who are like, we can do this better and in a different way. And it's been very inspiring.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's all about, like, for me, it's becoming that person that I needed 10 years ago, or, I needed during these moments where I was questioning things but didn't know what direction to go in. And I think these conversations is what really opens the door for a lot of insight for others to feel more comfortable throughout these changes because it's
Yeah,
very uncomfortable.
it is.
The people that are attracted to these conversations are the people that are helping create this energy that
Yeah,
is within these podcasts and within this new earth that we're creating, right? And that term is so out there, but just the new structures that have been waiting to be built. And it doesn't look any different than just one person going out there and doing something different.
absolutely. Every great movement, I think, started with someone being brave enough to take those first steps, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so can you go over some of your current offerings and how can people get on the podcast if they're aligned? Can you speak a little bit more about that and where people can find you?
Yeah. They can come to the website, www.bloodmoonradio.com. And on the website, there's a contact form you can fill out if you're interested in being a guest or if you want to write a blood letter. I do sometimes answer letters for people. And you'll also find on the website, I have membership areas. I have a couple little stores. And then I have the section for my business consulting services. So if you have a podcast or a spiritual business, and you're looking for some help, I do that as well.
Awesome. And I will link everything below for you as well, so people can easily find you and connect with you regarding all of these beautiful conversations you're having and services you provide.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Corley, so much for coming on today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been such an insightful and important conversation for a lot of people, especially those type A people out there. So awesome. Well, thank you again, and we will see you all next time. Namaste.
Namaste.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out my socials at The Om Way on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. You can also find me at theomlight.com. Sessions are now open and available. One-on-one sessions are super helpful for anything you may be going through in your life to help you feel more aligned and clear.